Hello and welcome to WJTS in.form. I'm your host, Bill Potter. Well, school starts for most next week, and one school that does start next week is Barr Reeve schools in the Daviess County, really. And we're going to be talking with the superintendent of the Barr Reeve school system, and that is Travis Madison. Travis, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Superintendent Madison, tell us about the Barr Reeve school system.
Well, we're, like you said, we're located in Daviess County. We're a smaller district. Currently, K through 12, we probably have, we're looking to enroll this year about 765 students, which is, it's up for us, which is a good thing. We're a consolidation from back in the 60s of schools from Barr and Reeve Township, therefore the name Barr Reeve.
Okay.
So we have two townships that are Daviess County that consolidated back in the 60s, and we have, currently we have one 2 through 12 building campus, and then we have a kindergarten to first grade building that we lease from the old St. Peter's Church. So we have two different locations just a couple of blocks apart.
Now, Barr Reeve is a small school.
Sure.
What are the advantages of being a small school?
Well, I grew up from a small school environment, and I feel like there's positives and negatives. I think the things that we try to focus on is the fact that we feel like we build great relationships. Within a smaller community, you obviously get to know your clientele. You know where a student maybe struggles or where a student excels. I think you develop stronger relationships maybe with their parents. It becomes more of a family atmosphere, and I feel like that's something that we sell. That's something that we feel like benefits us and benefits our kids greatly. I think, because in today's age, I think you need all those forces working together to be able to build that student up to help them reach their potential. And in a smaller environment like we have, I feel like our community backs us very well. I feel like our teachers do a wonderful job. Our parents do a great job supporting the school. We've got a great staff, and I feel like our kids come to school ready to go and ready to learn. And we have a few discipline issues. Kids are hardworking. They come from great backgrounds. So I think when you got all those things working together, it lends itself to having a successful school. In the small school environment, I just feel like we have that family atmosphere that I feel like is paramount in this day and age.
And I think that you mentioned four things: the staff, the teachers, the parents, and the community. That's what makes Barr Reeve what it is.
Sure.
But I'm sure there's got to be some disadvantages to being a small school when you look at statewide.
Sure. Well, funding is a major thing that we faced over the last few years. I was a principal before I became superintendent and had a great relationship with my predecessor. And as a small rural school, it's been a struggle to maintain funding enough to be able to operate the programs that you're used to having, especially at the quality that you're used to having. And just our school system alone, last year we had to put a referendum to our voters and our taxpayers in our district to give us the opportunity to raise a tax levy in order to keep those things solvent. And our taxpayers spoke loud and clear. They voted our referendum 82%, which is currently a record of a general fund referendum in the state of Indiana. So it showed us at least that they felt good about what we were doing. They felt good about what our school system stood for. And so it was something that we didn't necessarily ever want to get to, but one of the disadvantages of being a smaller district is the fact that we've been crunched by budgetary means, and so we had to kind of look at all the options we had available to keep ourselves around, and so that was a major project for myself and the board and our school corporation as a whole over the last 12 to 18 months. We were successful in that in May, and so it gave us some breathing room and put us in a good position for at least the next 7 years.
Well, that shows right there the community gave you a resounding A+ yes. on a grade when they vote to help you out in that way.
Sure.
Now, you've been a principal, now you're the superintendent. What are things that parents can do to make a better student?
I think just communicate with us and open that line of communication. I think obviously we want to all be on the same page. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree on everything, because obviously, I mean, there's going to be things that maybe we do at school that they maybe don't see eye to eye on. There's going to be things maybe we see that they're handling at home that you don't see eye to age on. But I think ultimately, as long as they realize the more we can work together, the better we're going to be able to provide for their student. And as a parent of school-age children myself, I think it's just setting up consistent rules, regulations at home. The one thing we always encourage our parents is to set up consistent study habits and help us with that. We'll try our very best to teach them the things they need to do, but there's going to be things that they need to help us with at home if they're going to master the things that we're going to ask these kids to grasp now. The curriculum's more demanding than it ever has been. So, and again, we're not asking them to teach it at home. All we're asking them to do is support what we're asking them to do, set aside quiet time for them to get that work done. If they have any questions, don't hesitate to contact the school, and just keep those lines of communication open. Because I think if we're communicating and we're both working together toward that goal, it's just going to be a great for that student to be able to reach their highest potential.
Let's talk about your school calendar. Starts
Sure.
next Thursday.
Yes.
The
The 8th.
The 8th. Okay. There been much of a change in the calendars for people?
No, we've consistently started earlier than our neighboring districts because it was always my feeling as the principal. Not that you want to base everything on the test. Unfortunately, that's, we don't teach the test necessarily, but at the same time, it is something that's the elephant in the room. You're always going to have to take it. That's how we're assessed. That's how we're graded. So I felt as a principal, as a leader of instruction, and my superintendent agreed with me, is that we wanted to have as much opportunity for our teachers to be in front of those students and to be able to instruct them on as many skills necessary prior to them having to sit for that high stakes test. In order to do that, the earlier you could start, and then obviously the test window was set by the state, it wasn't set by us. So we wanted to make sure and give ourselves enough opportunity to where if they were going to have to grasp these standards for whatever grade level it was, whatever subject area it was, we wanted to give them most time to be able to do that. We didn't want them to have to crunch them into 5-6 weeks and then after having had the test have another 6 weeks of school left over. So we've always traditionally started earlier. I know the biggest thing is, like, I think, I was talking to a colleague about, you're still going to go 180 days. It's just basically structured in a way that you feel like it. And the one thing about starting as early as we did is it also enabled us at a high school to split the semesters equally. You could finish your first semester prior to holiday break at Christmas time. Because if you start too late, then you have to kind of come back and finish your final exams beyond that. And I had done that as a student, and I just didn't feel like that was,
Yes.
Once you give a kids two weeks off and then ask them to come back and pick up where they left off. And starting that early also allowed you to have equal semesters and have a holiday break that would split those 2 semesters up. So, but so currently we're still on your kind of regular school calendar. I know a school near us, Washington, is looking into a balanced calendar. We share a lot of services with them, with our special ed co-op in Twin Rivers. So if they were to do that, we would probably have to look heavily at it as well. And we've investigated a little bit, but there's no need for us to do it unless the kind of the big person in our district in our area is gonna do it. So, but I know I've kept in close contact with their superintendent and their central office, and so at least we'll be abreast of what they're doing and be able to make adjustments necessary as we move forward as well.
Now, Barr Reeve is a little more rural than many schools, and I know when snow and bad weather comes, Barr Reeve, you have a tough time getting the school going. It's not because you're a small school. You are just a very rural area with
Sure.
a lot of tough roads for people to drive on.
Yeah, and especially down in our southern portion, a lot of gravel roads, a lot of county roads that become they're impassable in a lot of respects. And I always tell our parents, the decision I make is based on what our buses can do, because our buses can get. We can get out to all the different reaches, and so when I make that decision, which is probably one of the toughest that you have to make, because you're going to make people happy or mad no matter what you do, is I always make it based on what our buses can do, not what our student drivers can do, because obviously that's always a concern of mine. But I always stress to them is, if you don't want your son or daughter out on the road, there's a bus that comes by your house. They can hop on there, or you can bring them to school. So I always base it on what our buses can do on those roads, and so that's what I usually factor in when I'm out driving at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. I usually try to base it on what I feel like our buses can do. So,
now, it's hard to see into the future, but what successes do you hope for the Barr Reeve school system this year?
I just hope for continued growth. I feel like we've done a lot of good things. Our test scores have been consistently at or well above state average and at the 95th percentile. And those are things that are important to us, but I think the biggest thing I want to continue to see is each of our students growing individually and each of our students reaching their highest potential. I think you just got to look at each and every one of them and try to do what's best for them as much as possible. Put the best staff in front of them. Give that staff as much of the resources as you possibly can, and just continue to see that consistent growth within their educational experience. And my goal is always to prepare them for what's next. And whether that's at the elementary level, to prepare them for the next grade level, to prepare them for whatever's coming next, on into the high school, as you're getting them ready to either enter the workforce or enter the military or enter a college setting of some kind, is let's get them prepared for what they're going to be facing next. I feel like that's our ultimate goal.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add about the Barr Reeve school system?
Well, again, I'm very proud to be a part of it. I grew up in a neighboring district and was lucky enough to be brought into Barr Reeve about 11 years ago, and I feel like we've got a lot of positive things going on. We want to continue to build upon those, but just feel very blessed to be a part of that community, because the community is our school, and I feel like that's why we've been able to, as a small rural school, still grow and still move forward. And I just can't say enough about the folks that we work with in our community, the staff that we get an opportunity to work with each and every day, and our kids that come to school every day. I just can't say enough about them. It just makes our job so much easier.
Well, I think a lot of times in a community, folks don't realize the importance of a school in the community too, and that really plays a great part.
And ours goes hand in hand, and I think that there's nothing our folks wouldn't do for us if we needed it, as they showed last May, and I think that goes a long way for us, certainly.
Well, continued success at Barr Reef Schools.
Thank you.
Our guest has been Travis Madison, the superintendent of Barr Reef Schools. School starts next week for almost everybody in the WJTS viewing area. Thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We are local people watching local people.